if someone has cancer, you have to learn how to live with cancer. You have to learn how to live with chronic illness. You have to learn to live with the reality of brokenness and struggle. But that doesn't mean it gets to dictate how we live, that we don't make our decisions for that struggle and for that pain. We live with it as coming with us. But what we live for is we live for the fullness of how we are created. And we can experience fullness even if we have a particularly painful aspect to our story.
Today I'm joined by Evan Marbury, therapist, pastor, and author of a new book called Understanding Trauma and Resilience. There's two parts to this conversation. In the first part of our conversation, we talk about the heart behind the book, what trauma really is, and how it shows up in people's lives. And then we talk about being that empathetic witness that people need and not taking on the burden of their journey. It's a very interesting discussion about trauma and how we can help. In the second half of the conversation, we shift into something about the creative process. We talk about what it actually took for Evan to write the book in the middle of his full life, raising kids, working, and then feeling the weight of who am I? Who am I to write this? Will people listen? And dealing with those imposter syndrome type feelings. The idea that kept coming up over and over again was just get it to exist. You have this gift inside you. It can help people. Get it into the world. Not perfect, not polished, just real. I think it's perfect for the audience here who has missions inside their hearts that they want to get out. And it's just another expert who has taken steps to put his gift into the world. If that idea of getting it to exist is inspiring to you, and you've been waiting for the right moment to jump back on board the creative process, this might be the mental shift you need to finally take that step forward. Remember, I've created the Unpause playbook, the simple guide to help you move from getting stuck to taking that next first step. And when you download it, you'll get updates for our mission labs that are starting next month. These are just guided spaces where we can begin to build what's been going on in your heart, one step at a time. So if you're ready to stop waiting and start moving again, go grab the Unpause playbook at coursecreationstudio.com/unpause. Hello, and welcome back to the Scaling Therapist podcast. I'm your host, James Marland. This is the show where we help you turn your clinical experience, clinical wisdom into income. Today, I am here with my guest, Evan Marbury, and I met him through another acquaintance, and he has a book coming out about trauma and resilience and understanding that. And he just has a story that I thought the listeners would like to know about how he took a passion of his and turned it into something that's going to grow beyond him, like the book, to help other people. So, Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, James. Really appreciate it.
So why don't you just give us a brief introduction about who you are and what you do, and I guess where you're located right now.
Yeah, so really glad to be having this conversation with you, and hopefully it's helpful to your listeners. I'm in Durham, North Carolina. I've been here since 2018, wife and 3 kids. I serve primarily as a pastor in downtown Durham and also as a licensed therapist in Chapel Hill. So give part-time to that.
Is it an urban ministry? Like you're in the city?
Yes. So yeah, downtown Durham there's a lot of urban renewal happening, but yeah, we're in the heart of the city.
Wonderful. And you have your 3 children, so you're raising them there?
Yes. I have an 8-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old son, and 18-month-old son.
Busy. Oh, yes. Man.
Yeah, busy. Lots of energy from all 3 of them to keep up. I do my best.
Within this busy time, you're raising your kids, you do some therapy practice, and you're a pastor. You decided to write a book.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a perfect time.
Glutton for punishment.
So you the why tell me why you wrote the book. What led you to start processing and starting to put down on paper what you were seeing or learning in your work?
Yes, yeah, which is kind of funny because I got into the thick of the writing process when I had my third, and so it was sleep deprivation abound there. But I really got serious about writing the book maybe about 2023, 2024. I was just noticing as I was explaining trauma to my clients or people in the community that there was a lot of understanding of the word, but not a lot of understanding of the concept. And I
The
think,
word trauma, like
yeah,
people would just say trauma. It's a loaded word and it means different things to people. Right.
oh,
Okay. So
yes.
people are just saying trauma. What did you notice with people using the word trauma?
Yeah, just I mean, one, I think the word is yeah, I call it a cultural artifact. I mean, like, there's words and concepts that you raise, and if I say groovy, you're thinking of a certain era. I think trauma is a cultural era. Like the train is coming.
Oh, we got a train. The
We got a
train has
train.
joined the show.
I should have did this at home. I was like, "Where's the
It's fine.
quietest
Wait,
place?"
I it reminds me of my grandfather. My grandfather loved trains. We would go to his house and we'd listen to trains on cassette tape. And
Oh,
he had
wow.
a reel-to-reel player, and we would watch train movies, and he recorded and narrated the book or whatever, and I can still hear him, clickety clack down the track.
I
So I don't
love
mind trains. So
it.
it reminds me of good times. Yeah.
It's part of being in the heart of the city for sure.
Yeah.
Trains coming through here.
So people were using the word trauma and lack of understanding or
Yes.
just it meant different things and it's a cultural artifact. So pick back up there.
Yeah, cultural artifact. If I use the word groovy, that you can, that's from a particular era. I think trauma is one of those words in our culture that musical artists are using, actors are using, politicians are using, preachers are using. It's kind of everywhere. And in one sense, that's great because it's a sense of awareness and
Mhm.
sensitivity. I mean, post-traumatic stress disorder wasn't even diagnosable until 1980. And so we're within the aftermath of 40 years of research and understanding. And so it's a fairly new frontier of sorts. And so I definitely appreciate that there's an awareness, but how people were using it or even how they were identifying with it show like, oh, I think there's maybe more clinical help to bring to this along with a Christian worldview that I think is helpful as well to keep this concept that is real and needs to be part of our lexicon, but have it right sized. Because what is actually ultimate for us? And I think that was the tipping point for me is there were enough people that I was noticing that trauma was ultimate for them, that it got to dictate how they live their lives. And as therapists, we don't want the disorders, as real as they are, to dictate our clients' lives. We want them to live accessing flourishing and fullness and wholeness. And so that's really the main thrust of writing this book of identifying this truly, but also how do we still pursue fullness and dignity, living with trauma, not living for our trauma,
Ooh, I like that. Living for our trauma. What was the first part of that?
being with it. Kind of like the language of if someone has cancer, you have to learn how to live with cancer. You have to learn how to live with chronic illness. You have to learn to live with the reality of brokenness and struggle. But that doesn't mean it gets to dictate how we live, that we don't make our decisions for that struggle and for that pain. We live with it as coming with us. But
Mm.
what we live for is we live for the fullness of how we were created. And we can experience fullness even if we have a particularly painful aspect to our story.
So that seems more hopeful. Like the trauma I have doesn't have to determine my future. Like
Yes.
instead of I have this trauma, it's the story I tell myself and it means I don't go to Walmart at 5 p.m. or something. There's too many crowds and I had a bad experience in crowds or, I get nervous in crowds. And I don't want that to happen anymore. So that dictates the choices you make in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was the title of the book is Understanding Trauma and Resilience, a guide for counselors, caregivers, and ministers.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you noticed there was a lack of understanding. What are some of the things that people were misunderstanding about trauma that you're going to you noticed?
As the title says, it's aiming at the people that are trying to provide care. So the people that are affected by trauma, not primarily the trauma affected people. But as I was talking with folks, I get the opportunity to teach here and there, to teach therapists or people in ministry. And there's so many severe stories that are out there of recovering from assault and all these things. And people get this tender, sacred opportunity to enter in the most painful parts of their story. And what I was saying, and I continue to see over and over again, is how overwhelming it is to put words to that part of the story, to identify the reality of it, and to have a groundedness to know that to name it is does not mean that it will overtake you. That's often the place of I don't understand how to help them to move forward. And in the book, I use one example of, the woman at the well, excuse me, the woman at the well with Jesus, and how she is showing up at the well seems to indicate that there's an avoidance, there's a struggle that she's trying to manage, and Jesus is calling her out really to give her the dignity that she deserves, that it seems that she has lost touch with. And the woman at the well just feels like a really good example of how we can be tempted to live for our trauma instead of with it, to live for these really painful experiences that we want to avoid at all costs, whether by awareness or by re experiencing. And so we move around it. And there is a way to move through it and experience real healing and health. And so that's the place of understanding to be with that pain. Compassion, compassion means to suffer with, how to do that in a way that's really effective, but is also not a stopping point. To be with someone in their trauma is not the destination. The destination is resilience and fullness and experiencing true humanity, even with the pain that's there.
I like the hope in there that trauma doesn't always have to impact you for all your behavior for the rest of your life. There is some sort of hope. And from what I am remembering from the story about the woman in the well, she went to the well like in the heat of the day, if I remember. Like she went when nobody else was going to be there because she
Yes.
didn't want to deal with the trouble of listening to other people. Like it was hiding or avoiding
Yes.
what the scorn or the stigma from other people. And that is such a brilliant illustration for how for people in the church and in the communities are going through their trauma. They don't talk about it. It impacts their behavior and what they do in
Yeah.
ways that are big and small that you don't really realize. Like it's not really named.
Yes.
It's how things are.
Yes. Yes. And it highlights some of the decisions that we make that are so small they can seem insignificant. I'm just going to the well at noon.
Hmm.
But when you get curious, it's like you going to the well at any time of the day is not the issue. The issue is the driving force of it. If the driving force is this pain has dictated my life, it dictated my sense of self, has alienated me from relationships that are really important to me. Therefore, I'm going to the well at noon. Like that is the bigger part of the story that's worth calling out and worth bringing love and peace to. And I think that's what Jesus was doing. Like he didn't have to go to the well at that time. He didn't have to spark up a conversation. He didn't have to bring up her husbands. He didn't have to do that. He could have just let things be and let her do these small decisions that seemed insignificant, but were actually very significant to the wounds that she was carrying. And he
Mhm.
wanted to call her into more fullness, call her into receiving the better water, right, as it were.
Yeah, the behavior, like a lot of people who are experiencing trauma, you don't looking on the outside, you don't understand why they do what they do.
Yeah.
Why would you go to the well at the hottest part of the day?
Yeah.
Why do you stay inside, not go out? Why do why do
Yes.
you do these things? But you said the behavior is significant to their wounds. And until you get curious about what their wounds are, you're
Yes.
not going to really understand what is behind the behavior.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So that makes me go to the second part of the title. This is a guide for counselors, caregivers, and ministers. Why did you write to these people, and how does it help them understand the trauma that people are going through?
Yeah, I think a big part of that is obviously I think therapy is really great and important, and I recommend it. And I know I've been in therapy, and I think therapists should be in therapy for a whole host of reasons. And I also acknowledge that I have very few encounters with therapists where there's not wait list issues, right? That there's the demand for these
Mm,
resources does not match the supply. And I think that is what it is. I think therapy is a growth industry. I think the longer we see how the world is playing out, there will be always a need for therapists. That being said, what do we do with the folks that don't have the same access? And what is the opportunity for the church? What is the opportunity for God's people who are doing life with wounded people? And that is part of the question I'm seeking to answer. Yes, I want to support therapists in the therapy room. But if we just stop there, there is a whole swath of hurting and wounded people that will not receive this sacred care that I think should be accessible regardless of the kind of availability of certain practitioners. And so I do hope that, ministers, people in the church or missionaries, all these things, but even if you don't have necessarily a formal title, if you are a caregiver, if you are in relationship with someone and you're trying to walk with them through wounded parts of their story, I want there to be a sense of groundedness and a sense of I can do this. There's a part in my book where I talk about limitations. I'm not inviting everyone to be a trauma specialist per se, but there is something that we can do in terms of life together. And a critical aspect of trauma recovery is the aloneness that trauma affected people feel. When there is no empathetic witness, the effects of trauma persist and pervade all the more. And so, even one empathetic witness to your pain can really help move forward towards healing. And so, I do want that to be a part of this, as well as I don't want people to re-traumatize people. I definitely don't want to, with best of intentions for harm to be the result, and that can be a factor as well. And so, this book is to help provide some concrete ways to just be with and to be a purposeful presence.
so you I haven't heard that word before. The empathetic witness, maybe I have. It sounds like, what is an empathetic witness, and how do you what do you do?
Yeah, that's not from me. I've taken that from lots of trauma therapists along the way, Peter Levine, Chuck DeGroat. In one of the chapters in the book, I pull from the story of the Good Samaritan and how when someone was in the ditch wounded, there was a priest, there was a Levite, but it was the Samaritan that actually saw and moved towards. And it says move towards with compassion. That's what I imagine when I think about an empathetic witness. It's not merely seeing that someone is
Mhm.
wounded beyond their ability to get out of the ditch, but you're actually moving towards, you're being attentive, you're being responsive, and you're seeking to bring some sense of containment to the wounds. It's not just going to spill out and overtake you, but you do have to feel it. We can't avoid this, but I can be with you. And the Good Samaritan was with this person that was wounded, was with in the sense of taking it seriously, but also in the sense of being a witness. And that's a whole other conversation. You can't carry the wounds for them. It is still their wounds.
Mm.
You have to, at some level, embrace your limitations in their journey. You can't go on the journey for them. You can walk with them, but you can't go for them. What does it mean to be empathetic? Clear sense of witness, and also be a witness, meaning I get to behold your journey and support you in owning your journey.
Mm. Yeah, wonderful. That is great, wise advice. You can't own their story.
Yeah.
You can't own their feelings. You
Right.
can't own their behavior. And if you do, that is a boundary that's going to lead to disaster. Like, breaking that boundary is going to lead to disaster. So, this concept bringing that to light for the people who are going to be exposed to these hurting people
Yeah.
is such a necessary step for your own healing, your own strength, I guess. They're healing. Like, you can't heal for them.
Yes.
They got to heal. So I love the term empathetic witness.
Yeah, and I think it's really challenging because there can be aspects of this work where they seem undone as they're putting words to their experience and even messages that they're believing about themselves, that they are less than human, that they
Mm,
are just the sum total of the worst things that have happened to them, that they are worthless. And you can just see it playing out, whether they put words to it or you just see it on their
mhm,
countenance. And, if you're compassionate, you want to move towards them and rescue them out of that as quickly as possible. And you don't want it to sit there in the darkness and the pain. And also, you you can't rush them.
no.
You can't push them out. They have to take the steps. They have to walk this journey. And the beautiful sacredness of it is that they have felt so alone in this for so long that they have often felt resigned. But the simple act of you signaling, I am with you, would be shocked how invigorating that can be to walking the journey.
Mm,
You don't have to add platitudes, you don't have to do quick fixes. You being with them and witnessing doing the work is a critical part of the care. And don't underestimate the power of that.
yeah, don't discount it. Don't underestimate it. Don't take responsibility for
Yeah. Yeah.
their growth. That right there is probably going to save a lot of frustration and tears. The professional or even lay professional there to understand what is going on and what is your role. Like, really, what you
Yes.
name their role, because you want to do something. Like,
Yeah.
helpers want to do something. Like, how can I save this person? How can I make it easier for them? How can I rescue them?
Yeah.
And that doesn't sound like that's their role. You
No,
Yeah.
no, you can't. I mean, Lord willing, they will get to a place where a person that you're helping is really owning their story and they can really see a vision for themselves outside of these wounds. But we don't get to decide the timetable on that, which I think is really challenging for a host of reasons for therapists in particular, because we're trained and we have these certifications and these degrees. And so we can feel this pressure to be an expert in someone else's story. And that can put a pressure on us to have this timetable or this sense of progression. Maybe because we want to feel like we're doing a good job, or maybe it's because we really want to know that we're helping, or maybe it's because we really just don't want to see someone we care about suffering. While all of those are legitimate, those will persist. That doesn't go away, but you can't. That doesn't allow for a rushing either, and
Hmm.
a determination of how they take the next step. We have to just be faithful and staying with them while they discern and figure out what is the next step on my healing journey. Now, if you're noticing that them taking steps towards destructive behavior, I think you can identify that. But again, if they turn towards addictive behavior to soothe their wounds, you cannot own their decisions. They still have to own their decisions in that as well. And you have to figure out what does it mean to walk with them through that too.
I hear the train.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, he's gonna finish that sentence
I
any
promise
second
we
now.
do not have this many trains on a day ever. We really don't.
We're lucky. We're lucky that the trains are coming by. Very
Oh my
fortunate.
gosh.
Been a really We've talked a lot about the book, who it's for, what it is. Uh can we talk about, before we tell people where they can find the book, was there one problem or obstacle you overcame that was really deep struggle for you? We're talking logistics, business, like some sort of, is this going to actually get off the ground type of thing that you had to fight through? Because we all know these types of projects, these books, they don't just appear without some blood, sweat, and tears. So what's something you overcame for that you can share with the listeners?
The headline of it is overcoming imposter syndrome, where I feel like I'm an imposter to do any of this. Who am I?
Yeah.
I feel like I can, share these kinds of perspectives. But I think how the journey progressed for me was like I felt this inside of me as a potential, and I wasn't sure. And I decided I would take the next step of a yes. And so, the next step was finding a literary agent. And that literary agent actually put my proposal in front of folks, which putting a proposal together was a step as well. And, sample chapters. And it didn't actually work out. None of the publishers he put it in front of said yes. I was like, okay, well, maybe it's not gonna work out. Well, let me try one more. So I reached out to a friend that knew some publishers, and it worked out for me to have a contract with them. I even considered self-publishing, which I just decided that for the first book, I really wanted to have a publisher, but I don't think that self-publishing should be off the table. And so for me, just the mentality was I'm going to take the next step of yes until it becomes very clear that it's a no. And that can be frustrating because there is setbacks in that and uncertainty in that. But until it's a clear no, and you have this in you and you feel like it's a really good offering, take the next step of yes. And you might discover that maybe it's not a book, maybe it's a different kind of resource. That's helpful clarification. But if there is something in you that you feel like is worth offering to the world, and even if you're struggling to believe it's worth offering to the world, which that's again something I struggled with and still struggle with, take the next step and also invite feedback of people that know you and know your profession that can really encourage you. But I had a couple folks I reached out to get feedback, and one person in particular was like, "Just get it to exist." That was his encouragement to me because it was such an arduous process. Just get it to exist. Get in the chair, look at that blank page, and get the book to exist. It doesn't have to look good on the first round. That's what editing and revision is for. And so that was what I kind of clung to.
Mm,
I'm just going to get it to exist. And all the questions and struggles I have with it being good enough, I'm going to wrestle with that on the other side. Right now, I'm just going to get it to exist and see where we can go from there. And so the Lord
yeah.
was very kind in getting it to exist.
Two great principles there is done is better than perfect.
Yes.
So yeah, get it done. And then the other one is if you're striving for perfection, you're never going to make it to your destination.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
The example there is if I want to drive to the grocery store, but I have to write down all the steps I have to take, you know, get in the open the door, sit in the car, put the key in the thing, turn the ignition, put your foot on the
Yeah.
brake, put your foot like that's 1,000 steps before you've left the driveway.
Yeah.
If you have your destination in mind and you take the next small step forward, you're going to make it much further than like having the perfect plan, writing the perfect chapter, writing the perfect sentence.
Yes.
Like done is better than perfect, and just have a vision and move towards that goal. That's a brilliant description of how to get some of this stuff done.
And make room for the disappointment and the
Mm,
frustration. That I feel like sometimes that can feel like, oh, this shouldn't happen because it's hard. And it's no, it's just, it's not going to be easy and it's not even necessarily going to be smooth, but is there a sense of forward movement that signals to you this is a worthwhile endeavor? And again, that's where having people that believe in you and encourage you, that can give that kind of critical feedback so that you can stay the course because it's so easy to get lost in the thousand steps and be, very paralyzed by fear. And that's legitimate. That fear it's a feature, not a bug.
mm.
It's something that is just a feature to the process. It doesn't go away. And that's okay. It's something to manage as you continue to take the next risky step.
Great, wonderful words of wisdom. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurs listening have had the fear, the imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
and just knowing, there's hope. You don't have to be
Yes.
perfect. Just keep moving, walk through the open doors, get the encouragement from other people. Thanks so much for sharing that and your lessons. I feel like there's another episode in that conversation, but we're gonna
Be-
wrap it up here. Why don't can you tell us the name of the book again and where people can find it and any other links or resources you want to share with people?
Yeah, you can find my book on Amazon. So it's not out yet. You can pre-order it, at least when this recording comes out. It'll be on pre-order at June 2026 is when it comes out. You can also go on Baker Academics website. I think they have a bit of a discount if you get it straight from them. So you can look there. And you can go to my website, evanmarbury.com. I do a little bit of writing there, but I'm not online a whole lot these days. And I just appreciate getting these kinds of opportunities. James, I think you help to shape people's imagination for what faithfulness and taking the next step and putting goodness in the world could look like. And I think where I've been helped is making it really bite-sized. You really help in making it bite-sized. And there's just so much online and social media that's, wow, I cannot create a home run. So well, let's figure out how to swing a bat. And you do a really good job of helping people to see this is what it means to swing. Don't focus on the home run yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for that encouraging message. Evan, it was a joy to talk to you, and I wish you the best. And I also want people to know the things you're talking about. It's really needed. Like with leaders, what do I do with these people? How do I help them? What do I say? What's my role? All that is super important. So thank you for your message and being on the show and sharing it with the listeners.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to come on.
Okay, listeners, thank you for joining us today. It's now time to go put your mission in motion. We'll see you next time. As we wrap up the show today, I want to leave you with one simple thought. You're not the only one that doesn't have it all figured out. In fact, you don't need to have it all figured out to get started. You don't need the perfect plan. You just need to take the next step, see where the next yes is, and get your dream, get your mission to exist. For some of you, that's going to be a book. For others, it might be a course, a workshop, some paid public speaking, or just getting that idea into the world for the first time. If it's in you and you're passionate about it, it's worth pursuing. It's worth taking seriously. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to be perfect. Just take those small steps forward. Finally, as we close, I want to say thank you to our pro-level sponsors of the Scaling Therapist Services directory at scalingtherapistservices.com. These are the people and companies that help therapists grow and reach their full potential. They help break down growth bottlenecks. And I want to say thank you to ARC Integrated, TheraSAS CRM, Guest Compliance Consulting, Freedom Business Solutions, Boss Co., and Profit Comes First. Really grateful for their support and helping me help more people put their mission in motion and let their dream live into the world. Finally, if today's episode stirred something inside you and you're like, I really need to get this into existence, it doesn't have to be perfect, I want to encourage you to grab the Unpause Playbook. It's a simple place to begin. It'll ask you some questions to help you find your footing again and then take that next first step. When you download it, you'll also get updates to the Mission Lab, which is starting next month. So you don't have to do this alone. You can do it with a group of people. All right, that's it for today. It's time to face those fears, take the next step, and put your mission in motion. We will see you next time.